Now we are officially getting to that territory where slowly news, images, interviews, and more announcements might be coming our way. We're less than 2 months away from the premiere of the final season of Book 2 Ghost, and I'm sure the promotion and marketing will be explosive, especially with this season being the last. With that being said, we've got to look at the titles for the first 5 episodes thanks to Rotten Tomatoes, which I would say is a very good source. So in this video, we're going to be running through those 5 episode titles, particularly episode 1 and 5, but we'll be splitting this video into 2 parts. We're going to be looking at those titles and what they could mean, and then we're going to take a look at the top 5 burning questions that this season of Ghost have to answer, which kind of ties into some of those titles. So we're going to run through the flash drive, Club Truth, and the question around Ghost. There's Effie's backstory, and will we have another crossover with Force with Tommy returning to New York? And I will also be rounding off with some other few thoughts and theories as well. But that's the agenda for today's breakdown, which does kind of break up the character analysis breakdowns I've been doing over the past few weeks. I've done a character breakdown for Kane, Effie, Tariq, and Diana, and I will get to the rest of the characters over the next few weeks. But over to the titles for episode 4. We've got episode 1, which is titled I Don't Die Easy, episode 2, To Thine Own Self, episode 3, Birthright, episode 4, The Reckoning, and episode 5 is titled Ego Death. So we've only got the first 5 episode titles thanks to Rotten Tomatoes, which is part 1, and there aren't any episode descriptions to go with them or images just yet, but these episode titles are very interesting, especially episode 1 and 5. We all know at the end of Ghost Season 3, Monet was left in a life or death situation. She had several gunshot wounds after Tasha lit her up, and that's why I think episode 1 will be centered around Monet doesn't die easy. So I personally think episode 1 will be where Monet wakes up in hospital, where she's kind of, asking questions. Maybe she doesn't remember anything, maybe she's kind of suffering from some kind of memory loss, or maybe even faking memory loss just like Detective Howard did back in Raising Kanan. But I do think we will see her in hospital or generally just kind of nursing herself back to full health. But then I expect Power Book 2 Ghost to move the storyline on very swiftly. Ghost is a show that moves at a very quick pace, and with it being the last and final chapter, I don't think they've got any time to waste. I think she's going to want answers as to who was behind the gun, and even though she'll most likely be told it was Tariq, I expect her to have some reservations, because Monet isn't stupid. As the first half progresses, I think she's going to see the signs, she's going to start asking questions, and when she comes face to face with Tariq again, which I personally think is this particular scene, that's when I think she'll realise it was actually Drew and Diana. But with episode 1, I do expect them to kind of give us the answers, and maybe there's a bit of a time jump, who knows. Now having said that, even though I do believe the core of that episode will be centered around how Monet doesn't die easy, we have to remember, these episode titles are themes that could run across the entire crew, and we can also make a case of how it also extends to Tariq St. Patrick, and also characters who are dead, which is also something I'm going to come to in just a moment. But with Tariq, we all know Nomar and the Tejada set Tariq up at the warehouse, where they were going to take him out, but we all know Tariq doesn't die easy either. There is of course a lot of plot armor with him being a St. Patrick, but you are going to have to do more to get rid of Tariq. Now on the second point, you guys have heard me use the term beyond the grave, because we keep on seeing or hearing about characters making moves even though they're dead. In terms of Power Book 2 Ghost at this moment in time, Cooper Saxe is another.
Let the white whale go. I won't let it take you down like it did me, because from where I am now, I can play just as dirty.
So he can play just as dirty from where he is, and even though he is technically dead, Cooper Saxe doesn't die easy either because of things like this flash drive. But those are my general thoughts on episode 1's titled I Don't Die Easy. Monet won't die easy, Tariq won't, and I still feel Cooper Saxe's influence will linger around right till the very end, and so he doesn't die easy either. Now when it comes to the rest, here's where it starts to get a little tricky. But episode 2, To Thine Own Self. This is a quote by William Shakespeare. It basically means you have to be true to yourself, your principles, and who you are. Again, that can actually extend to all of the characters, because there is a lot of self-deception, where characters are not accepting of who they are. Now even though I think it will be a theme that runs across the chessboard, 2 characters who spring to mind is Drew and Diana. These are 2 characters who still want out the street game, want to forge their own path, but are kind of stuck, not accepting what Kane told them at the end of season 3. They're drug dealers and that's what they ever will be. We've then got Birthright and The Reckoning for 3 and 4, which I'm not going to try and predict too much because it is way too early. We need to see what kind of happens in episodes 1 and 2 first. But with Ego Death, which is episode 5, that's when I think we're going to see a major death that will completely change the game for the second half, and I really wouldn't be surprised if Drew was one of them. But let me know your thoughts on those 5 episode titles. Let me know how you think the first half will go and just your general thoughts on the first 5. But over to the 5 clues I think we need to look out for in season 4, starting with the flash drive. So what's exactly on this flash drive? Now this is something I did go through in a bit of detail last year when season 3 came to an end, along with a few other thoughts and theories, but I do have some new thoughts that I am going to run through based on the synopsis for season 4. But just as a very quick recap, we know Cooper Saxe left a few letters to stir up trouble. He warned Jenny from going after Tariq St. Patrick to try and save her from suffering the same fate. He also brought 2-Bit back into play. Before Junior, he left him this flash drive. Now in my opinion, the contents of this flash drive will be one of the driving forces for Junior to go after Tariq, the Tejadas, Davis McLean, and who knows, maybe even Tommy Egan. Cooper Saxe was a character who knew the consequences of the game that he was in. He knew what happened to his entire task force he worked with back in Power. He knew what happened to those who gets close to a St. Patrick, and so he also knew becoming a CI was extremely dangerous. The moment he flipped over to the other side, he would have known there was a chance he may not make it in the name of justice. And look, he might have actually been someone who was always after justice, but we've known Cooper Saxe for 9 years of Power. He was as slimy as they come, and in Blanca Rodriguez's own words,
Saxe is dirty.
He was dirty, he plays dirty, and he's still going to continue to play dirty from beyond his grave, which is why I think episode 1's title is a theme that will run across the chessboard. But some of the questions we should be asking, no matter what the evidence is: how far does it go back, why did he leave it for Junior, and what impact will it have? I previously ran through how I would have loved for him to find out Tommy was alive. I do think they kind of missed a trick in not giving us Saxe's reaction, but who knows, maybe still something we might actually see in a very quick flashback. Saxe was one of those grimy characters who was always up to no good, and I wouldn't be surprised if he found info on Tommy. Could it also be information on Ghost and Angela's relationship? For example, Junior being Ghost and Angela's son, which is where I kind of want to look at other patterns of play in Power. So let's remind ourselves, Monet had Zeke with Mecca at a very young age, but she knew that the life that she was living only ends in 2 ways, death or jail. She then decided it was best if she leaves him with her sister to grow up away from the dangers of the street life that Monet and Lorenzo were in, and eventually give the family a way out of the streets in terms of his basketball career. But you're probably thinking, how does this relate to Junior Valdez? Now Power runs on patterns of play, so let's remind ourselves what happened with Ghost and Angela when they were younger.
Joe was the opportunity of a lifetime.
You said you'd be back for Christmas.
My family moved to Sunnyside after I
I
left.
had the same number, but you were just...
It was said that Angela just left without saying a word. She literally just upped and left to go to Chode. But what if when she left, she was pregnant? What if, very similar to how Monet saw Zeke as her way out the game, the way she kept Zeke hidden from Mecca and raised by her sister, Angela did the same? The Valdez family would have known that Angela was their best shot at being able to get out of the dangers of the world that they were living in. After all, she was the one who was paying for Junior's tuition. So in doing so, Paz Valdez may have actually agreed to raise Junior just as her own, just like Monet's sister did with Zeke, which would then give Angela the freedom to go to law school, giving her the best possible opportunity to build a career that would later benefit the entire family. Now let's take another example that runs on a similar pattern.
You don't think I wanted to confess? But our family made a choice, or rather Theo did. I was 21, Cooper. Just got accepted to Columbia Law. I didn't know the system like I do now.
We all know Davis McLean committed the murder that Theo was in prison for, but their family made a choice, or rather Theo made a choice, because Davis was only 21 and he'd just been accepted into Columbia Law School. So we've got 2 examples that where families seem to have made decisions based on their siblings having the opportunity to further their education, and so it does make you wonder if those patterns of play have a deeper meaning with Junior.
But at least Angela didn't have kids with him. At least you can walk away.
So what I would say to that theory is, which I know will split a lot of opinions in this comment section, just keep your mind open, because we all know Power, they're gonna hit us hard with a lot of twists and turns in this final chapter. Now having said that, I also wouldn't be surprised if there was also a folder for Davis with what he's done. Davis suspended and pending disbarment in the wake of his brother's death, fully embraces the criminal side of his enterprise and finds himself working for both sides. His loyalty depends on whichever will benefit him the most. So rewinding it back to the beginning of season 3, one thing we have to remember when it comes to Cooper Saxe, he had a lot of access to resources, documents, and information in and around Davis's office. He was also someone who wasn't afraid to snoop around and play both sides. So you do have to wonder, could Saxe have uncovered more dirt, and is this why Davis is now in trouble? He was never really happy defending criminals, and I think he partly blames himself and probably Davis for the deaths in and around seasons 2 and 3. So that's one of the more realistic elements that could come from the flash drive based on the synopsis, because Cooper Saxe really is that kind of character to kind of just burn everything and everybody to the ground, all the way from Tariq, the Tejadas, to Davis McLean. so the flash drive is 100% one to keep an eye on, and I'll leave my previous breakdown down below in the description. Number 2. Club Truth and Will Ghost return? A few questions I think we need answering first is, how did Tariq manage to get his hands on Club Truth, considering he lost his trust fund in the Western Holdings Ponzi scheme? Did Ghost have Club Truth protected? Is he going to have help from RSJ, or could he have help from Simon Stern? We all know how much Stern wanted to add Club Truth to his collection of nightclubs, and that didn't change after Ghost's death. But I do think they need to answer that question first, especially because Tariq had no access to his trust fund until he graduated from college with an average GPA of 3.5. Ghost made it so that he had some level of control over Tariq, although who knows what the plan is with Tariq and Stansfield, because in my opinion, if the trust fund is no longer there to inherit, there's no point in him being at Stansfield. So early in episode 1 and 2, I do think that's one of the questions that they will address around him being at Stansfield and his intentions. But the next question is, who comes up behind Tariq in Club Truth? I always say nothing is a coincidence in Power, and the fact that they've left this clue along with the teaser being in black and white, it does leave us wondering, can it really be Ghost, either in a hallucination scene or as an alive character? Now, I've previously given my opinion a few times around this Ghost scenario. I personally don't think it makes sense for him to come back as an alive character, because at the end of the day, I think it does come down to the dollar bills. And we also know the reason why they've cancelled Ghost is because it gets way too expensive after the season 3 or 4 mark. You then have to explain how he survived. Where was he for this entire time? Why would he leave Yasmin, and why hasn't he come back before? I think there's so many questions that need to be answered, which isn't impossible. This is TV after all. But in my personal opinion, I think it's way too far gone. We also have to look at the way Omari speaks in his interviews past and present. I don't think he was ever fond of the way his character died and so on. So I personally don't see him coming back as an alive character, but I can see him coming back as a hallucination. You have to think, for Tariq's story to come full circle, it does make sense that he sees his father at some point near to the end of his story, and we are getting to that point, so they say. The cast and crew are obviously saying different, so it does make us question the ending and whether we'll actually see them coming face to face again. So I'm not 100% sure whether we're actually going to get closure when it comes to Tariq's journey, which is a real shame if we don't. We followed Tariq's story arc for a decade, and not to get a conclusion with Ghost potentially appearing in a hallucination scene, I think it would personally feel incomplete. But let's wait and see. These are the questions and mysteries around Club Truth and Ghost appearing. It's definitely one of the big ones. Number 3. Why is Monet screaming, and what will be the fate of the entire Tejadas? With it being the last and final chapter, I'm hoping we see a bloodbath when it comes to the Tejadas. I initially thought one Tejada would drop as each season passes by, with Monet being left on her own. Her sitting at this dinner table looking on at everything and everything she's lost to the street game because of her actions and the actions of others. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen because season 4 is the last, but regardless, the Tejadas will be at the center of it all, which means Monet will. In the teaser we see her screaming, and that's one of the scenes that I'm looking forward to seeing. You know, has she finally found out that Drew and Diana betrayed her? Is she about to lose one of them, if not both? Has she kind of had to make a deadly decision? Or just like the synopsis teases, has she finally realized that she's about to meet her maker? I do think the storyline around the betrayal is something that will probably not be wrapped up as such, but more so revealed around the episode 5 mark, which turns the tables for part 2. I also wouldn't be surprised if she creates another alliance with Tariq after they talk things through, and with Kane being Mama's boy, who was also lied to by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up seeing Kane and Tariq working together once again. But why Monet could be screaming, I think she may have finally found out the truth, or she's just lost either one of Drew or Diana. I think the only thing that would potentially save Diana from the wrath of her mother is if she was pregnant, not necessarily from Tariq, but maybe Salim, which is a theory I went through before, so I will leave the link to this particular video in the description section as well. But that's the only thing I think could save Diana. I also think there's not much more they can do for Drew's storyline. I think they pushed him to the brink where he's lost his boyfriend, he's lost his love for art, he's becoming reckless and making decisions that aren't exactly for the benefit of the family. And you guys know as well as I do, we've all been watching Power for a very long time to know, when a character starts to lose everything around them, and when they start to become reckless, that's when you know their time might be coming to an end. So I do think the writing is on the wall for Drew, which is why I think he could be the death in episode 5, ego death. As for Diana, I am hoping for the same. For Monet, it would be quite poetic if she ended up in prison or jail, just like Tasha did for Tariq. But the synopsis teasing she may have met a maker does make me think she might end up biting the dust as well. But let's see what storylines are closed and which ones are potentially left open. Number 4. Effie's backstory. Now this is one which I have spoken about for many years now, and I think now's the time to give us those key details. They've been slowly drip feeding information that goes all the way back to Power in regards to her mother being a drunk, her connect, and also her brother who was killed in a robbery gone wrong. In Ghost Season 3 we started to learn more about her tough upbringing, and how she went through a really tough time during her childhood. We also learned that she doesn't have much of a relationship with her parents, because when she was younger, it was said that she was sexually abused by her mother's boyfriend. Now instead of believing Effie when she finally plucked up the courage to speak to her mom decided she was gonna marry him. So again, just like how I mentioned for Drew, when they start dropping these breadcrumbs, we always have to keep an eye on them. I do think we're finally gonna get the answers we're looking for when it comes to Effie, and when we do have to ask the same questions we've done for Drew. Will she also be on the chopping block? I can't lie, I do hope she is. You know, season 4 is the last, so you may as well make it a bloodbath in my opinion. But Effie's backstory, that's one of the key details I do hope they do reveal. Number 5. Will there be any crossovers, and could Tommy return to New York once again? Now we have had our fair share of crossovers over the years. Most recently we saw Tommy coming back after Diana leaked Tasha's location, where he dropped his beef with Tasha and also gave Tariq a bit of advice.
If you want to survive, you either a civilian or a gangster. There ain't no in between. Stay in your lane, all in or all out. If you get distracted, you did.
Now in this conversation he did mention that the war that Tariq had on his hands wasn't his to fight, but what if Tariq really needed help? We all know that he's going to find a new alliance with a new crew, but what if Tariq was really in trouble where something happened to Tasha, Yasmin or Grandma Estelle, where they found themselves in danger? Tommy coming back to New York definitely can't be ruled out, especially if one of the bits on the information on the flash drive is Tommy being alive. We also have to bear in mind, with Ghost coming to an end, do they set up some of these characters to go over to Chicago? Do they enforce out season 3 and kind of tie the Shoot 2 shows into one? Who knows? But crossover with Force and Ghost again definitely can't be ruled out, and that's my 5th pick to keep in mind for season 4. Now elsewhere we also have to kind of find out what's going to happen with the rest of law enforcement, because I'm sure Jenny Sullivan won't rest until she brings down Tariq St. Patrick, neither will Blanca Rodriguez. She's also someone who's been after Tommy for many years, so it would be interesting to see her reaction. What happens with Brayden and how does it become reckless? Will we see Lauren return and come face to face with her old nemesis? What happens with Rashad Tate and his political career? And could we see other characters return like Elisa Marie Proctor? There's still so many more questions and mysteries going into season 4, and who knows, they may or may not answer come the end of season 4, or it may even kind of set up into a new spin-off, but the floor is now yours. Those are my top 5 picks, but drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and let me know your thoughts on the episode titles, as well as your thoughts on the flash drive, the Tejadas, Effie's backstory and crossovers, as well as any other kind of storylines you want to kind of touch on. Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.